Just sitting out here in the car waiting for the baby girl to get out of class, karate class. And I was thinking about my father-in-law. I remember when we first got married and we moved closer to them. And I never met someone who was a strong, independent, mid-coast Maine guy. Very self-sufficient, very independent, very stubborn as far as wanting to do things on his own. And it took a long time for me to truly understand that. Now I was always taught to work hard. I was always taught to, support yourself. And so it's very interesting that there's just a different viewpoint. Southern tradition, community, everything was. And while that has its benefits, I was thinking there's something so important about community. There's something so important about not trying to do things on your own. And I think one of the hardest pills for me to swallow during those first 6 months to a year of grief was trying to do it on my own, trying to handle it by myself, go through this and process and heal and grow and grieve, and learning to swallow my pride and realize that I don't have to do this alone. Because I was trying to go through it alone because I had to be strong for, the wife and the other children and other family members that were struggling with Chris's death. And one of the greatest tools I learned was to, while I had a very dear friend who is a friend and a counselor, became my grief counselor, and I allowed myself to open up to him. I allowed myself to open up to my wife once I knew she was processing. You don't have to do this alone. There's so much value in community. That's why small towns are wonderful. That's why churches are so important, because especially the small, intimate churches that have a real community and a real family bond. I remember years ago when we were at a family reunion way over in Eastern Oregon. It's a little tiny farming town where my grandpa and grandma lived. And my wife and I took the kids into town, all 153 people that lived in the town. They had a Dairy Queen. We went to Dairy Queen for ice cream. And I remember the undersheriff, this big 6'5", big muscle dude with the cowboy hat and the big huge, .357 revolver. And he goes, "Where are you guys from?" And I told him, I said, we're at the Larimores for a family reunion. He goes, "Oh, Junior and Gene, I was just over there the other day," and seeing that bond of community, just the police officer, just the sheriff, "Oh yeah, I know my grandpa, know him quite well." Don't go through things alone. Find community. Even my wife and I were getting ready to start a community of grieving, hurting, broken people, and because there's advantage and importance in community. Do not do this alone. And let me just encourage you. We want to be strong, especially the pig-headed guys. We want to do this on our own. You don't have to. The day I realized that I could break in front of my wife, mentally and emotionally, the day I realized I could really be honest with my counselor, that was the day that real healing started. Don't try and go it alone. Don't try and do this on your own. You'll be all right. But find community. Find someone to help. And that's when you really start to grow and grieve and become more than you are. You can do this. You'll be all right.